Hey you guys, this is Leslie, and today I want to talk to you about minimalism in tiny spaces. My family downsized by about 90% to live in a very tiny space. We are living in a 300 square foot fifth wheel so that we can travel across the United States. In that 300 square foot, we have 2 adults, 2 children, and a great big dog. We downsized by this much so that we could get some different things out of life, like more family time, reduced expenses, and the ability to see the country. I have always felt like every time I live in one spot, like I'm ready to move on to the next spot because I just want to see more of this beautiful world. So we decided to make a lifestyle of it. But minimalism doesn't look quite the same for us as it does for other people. We don't have great big expanses of open, bare space and bare floors and empty shelves. That isn't what minimalism is for us. When you're in a tiny space, minimalism works a little bit differently. Honestly, I think minimalism works a little bit differently for every single family, but life works a little bit differently for every single family, doesn't it? So, of course, minimalism would too. So, when you're in a tiny space, you have to use every bit of storage that you have, which means that sometimes the spaces are packed a little bit tight. But remember, we're living in 300 square feet with 4 people and everything that we own, minus a few things that are stored at my mom's house. When you're in a tiny space, clear countertops are not a reality. I would love to have completely cleared countertops, but my countertops are about this big. So in that space, I do have to keep my toaster oven out because we use it on a regular basis. There aren't extra cabinets to put it away in, and probably a lot of people could have nothing but a toaster oven on the counter and it would still look like it was a pretty empty space. So you just have to keep in mind what it is you're working with. So we have a tiny space, we have a tiny countertop. We use that counter constantly. It gets filled up and emptied off and filled up and emptied off, but even emptied off still means there's stuff on it because that's part of our storage, and realistically we have to have that as part of our storage. When you're in a tiny space, a lot of times you're looking for things that are going to be multifunctional or small. So a lot of times when I am buying something new, it's to replace something I already had with something hopefully that's a little bit smaller or that does multiple jobs. And I'm always thinking about the jobs that things do. So if I can use a knife for something, then I'm probably not going to have a kitchen gadget that does the same thing, because a knife can do a ton of things and it's pretty small. Although I did have for a while a spiralizer to make the sort of veggie noodles out of, and that was awesome and we loved to use it, but it was this huge contraption. And we went to the fair last summer in New York, and there was a woman there that had these little bitty tools, and I mean this tool is like tiny. It's like this size, you know, and it's sort of more like a vegetable peeler type thing, but it's designed to sort of make those veggie noodles out of it. It's teeny tiny and it fits right in a drawer, no problem. So I went ahead and got those and got rid of my spiralizer, which was this big contraption that took up a whole part of a cabinet. Though we still have some DVDs, we try not to buy too many because we can watch movies on Netflix or on YouTube or on Amazon Prime. We can stream movies without having to own the disc for the movie, so we try to avoid buying those as much as possible. I do still get books, but I also try to check them out from the library, and to be honest, I don't really like reading books online anymore, so mostly I just try to get them, read them, and then pass them along when I'm done. Our rooms are multi-use because there's 2 of them. 4 people, 2 rooms. So the main living area has the kitchen, has the dining room table, and has just the living room itself. But it also doubles at night as the kids' bedroom, and we transform it into beds for them, which means that there can be a lot of pillows on the floor sometimes. That's just part of it. When you live in a tiny space, sometimes you give up having a room that's gonna stay for what it is all the time. That room also can be used as an office, it can be used as a painting studio, it can be used as a crafting room. This one room is where we do all of our living, of course, except when we're outside. But pretty much this room can transform to be whatever we need it to be. And sometimes that means it's a little bit messy, even though we're minimalists. A lot of people will pursue minimalism in their house. So whatever size house that may be. Before we lived in this tiny space, we were in 2,500 square feet. And as we got rid of things, we got rid of a lot of things, we started shutting rooms off because we weren't using them anymore. But I think that a lot of people who would continue to live in the same home that they were in when they pursue minimalism, it might feel odd to have all this empty space, and then you have the concerns with going back out and shopping to fill that space back up, or over time gradually bringing in more things to fill that space up. And when you're in a tiny space, you don't have that luxury of accidentally filling the space back up, which is kind of a good thing. But you always have to be looking at what you have and asking, is this something I still want to keep? Is this necessary? Does it still make sense for me to own this? Do I need to let go of some of this? Do I need more space here? So when you're in a tiny space, you can't build up the stuff again. Even if you go out and shop, you still have to fit it in. And there isn't that much room. So you are always having to go through your things and make sure that you fit in the space that you're in. And I don't mean that as in a we don't do anything but go through our stuff and make sure we can still fit there all the time kind of way, but more of a when you wash the clothes and are putting them away, you might notice, hey, I don't want this shirt anymore, and don't put it away. You just put it straight into the donations bin. Or I'm regularly having to have my kids go through their toys because they do want to bring in more toys. And as much as I'd like them not to do that, I can't have complete control over what they do. I have to let them do some things that they're going to want to do. So sometimes they bring in new toys, and I just have to make sure that they understand that when they come home, they have to choose some things that are also going to go out, because right now their toys take up more space than I would like, which means additional toys, there's no room for them. So minimalism looks a little different in a tiny space than it does if you're in a big home. And if you're in a big home, you probably do have the nice big empty spaces and things like that. But when you're in a tiny home, that's just not going to happen. No matter how minimal you are, there's not going to be lots of large open spaces, because when you're in a tiny home, there aren't any large open spaces, even if the home is empty. So minimalism just looks a little different in a tiny home than it does in a bigger home. So I'd love to know, are you a minimalist, or is this something you're just thinking about in your life? What sort of a home do you live in, and what do you think it's going to look like once you go minimal? Are you planning on moving into a tiny home, or are you going to stay in a larger home just with less stuff? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe for more like this. I'll talk to you in the next one. See ya.